You ready to do this, Stu?
Spencer, I am ready. Punch it, Chewie.
Welcome, Super Friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot is Stu Jones.
Howdy, howdy.
We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode number 75. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, forwardofnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available there. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week in your ear hole. Now, tonight is an interesting night because I am joined once again by Stu Jones, but I'm also joined by Britta because this is a movie club, so we are three deep tonight. Stu, Britta, how are you guys doing?
Super fantastic, awesome.
I'm doing great, thanks.
So,
what? That's a lie. I gotta say, it is a lie. I have not slept since I saw Infinity War.
Well, we're going to make an announcement here. This is episode number 75. I figure that's a good number. It's like 3/4 of the way to 100. Stu is going to be my permanent co-host. He's going to be joining me here each and every week here on the Fortress of Nerditude. And Stu, congratulations. Welcome officially to the podcast as the official co-host.
Thank you very much. It was very hard fought. It was an arena battle with many other contenders, much like Hulk and Thor. But I came out on top through the cunning use of role-playing miniatures.
It was very intriguing. For a while, I didn't know if you were going to have the stamina to last, because, I mean, there was a lot of competitors. But
I hear that a lot.
But, let me tell you, I was impressed. I really was.
Well, thanks. No, seriously, glad to be here. It's worked out really well. I think we have good chemistry, and I love the material that we go over, so I'm all in.
Nice. And then, of course, Britta's with us each and every month when we do our movie club. I would congratulate Britta on being married to me and being
that deserves congratulations.
But it's more maybe
Does
sympathy
it or
because she has to
for surviving.
Yeah, exactly.
For surviving.
So, Britta, tell us, since we've talked to you the least recently, what's new? What is going on with you?
Well, let's see. I'm assuming you kind of talked about us going to Disneyland last week. So
a little bit, but you can recap as much as you'd like.
Yeah. So, well, as our super friends who listen probably know by now, I'm obsessed with Disneyland. It's kind of my favorite. So we had a wonderful trip to Disneyland. Kids loved it. We loved it. I am completely worn out and exhausted and have been recuperating this week. So it's kind of nice to go back to work sometimes after vacation, which means you don't have to walk 20,000 steps every single day again. I enjoy that. But I miss Disneyland. It was fun. So that's what I've been doing, just working.
Well, I'm jealous. I still have not been to Disneyland. And hearing about you two going does not help that problem at all.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Well, glad you're back with us again, Britta, and I'm glad we're going to be able to talk about what we're talking about tonight.
Oh, I'm so excited. I need this discussion.
Stu, what's new with you this last week?
No sleep since Infinity War. Feeling a little rejected by MoviePass.
We'll get there, my friend.
It's been a hard week. All the emotions are coming up to the surface.
I feel like it's going to be like a therapy session today, just like whole thing.
It is. I need to let it out.
Yeah.
It's been bottled up since yesterday. That's a long time.
I feel you, Stu. I got it.
It's been infinity.
Yes. It feels like it's been for infinity, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you a quick rundown of my week because this last week just crazy. Like, so we came back from vacation and you get back to work and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to get back to work, whatever. But it was work on Monday and then go to dinner for Jackson's actual 4th birthday.
True.
And then record a podcast. Then Tuesday, work and then immediately go downtown to go see Hamilton, the musical, which is excellent if you haven't seen it.
Oh yeah, I forgot we did that.
Then Wednesday, it was, I know, it's been a
We've
crazy
done a
week.
lot in the last few weeks. Like, I'm exhausted.
So Wednesday was work, and then it was come home and actually celebrate Jackson's birthday party. Then Thursday was work, and then I came home, and I actually left work a little early and went down to West Valley to go to a Comcast event to see Infinity War with our super friend of the show, Jason Bolth. And then Friday night was work, and then come home and work more in the evening. And then Saturday was like lawn, like I did like the lawn. I did the weed whacking. I fixed sprinkler heads, took the kids to Costco, did a whole bunch of like dad responsibilities. And then I had a barbecue with my motorcycle club down in Provo. And so I got to go out and ride a little bit, but still, just like thing after thing. And then Sunday was just, kind of a normal, like went to church in the morning and then just kind of took it easy, which also meant, doing some prep work for the week and prep work for the podcast. And so like just, it's been thing after thing after thing after thing after thing all week long. And I'm super happy to get back to the Fortress of Nerditude tonight. And I know that like I don't have anything else to do the rest of the week, minus just like normal week stuff. So, well, and I also fit in like an extra day of work in all that because I bought back a day of PTO. So like last week was crazy.
I suddenly feel well rested because apparently last week I did nothing. I just worked. I just did the parent thing. I didn't do any of that crazy stuff. You're sounding like an orc. Work.
All right. Zog.
Me, not that kind of work.
It was a fun week, but like it's one of those weeks where like you know it's coming up, so you're mentally prepared for it. But when it's over and done with, like you're just ready for things to kind of get back to normal again. Anyway, just a crazy week, and you know what? Like I said, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to do this once again, guys. And I'm really excited to talk about the content of the show, the movie club, which we're going to talk about Avengers Infinity War tonight. I'm super excited for this.
Yep, you're on the Bald Guy with Goatees podcast.
That's right. We should rename this Fortress of Nerditude : Bald Guys with Goatees podcast. Let's what do you guys say? Let's jump into some Rebel Intelligence.
Sounds good.
Yeah, let's.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, we're into Rebel Intelligence. Britta, why don't you kick us off?
All right, so those of you that are familiar with George R.R. Martin and his Song of Ice and Fire have been anxiously anticipating the next book in the series, which we do know is called The Winds of Winter. Yeah, George R.R. Martin has announced it's not coming out in 2018.
Ugh.
Anyone a fan of the series really probably not that surprised, because it takes him like 15 years to write a book. I'm just kidding, not 15 years, but you know what I mean.
They won't be surprised, but they'll still be mad.
Right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Well, the problem I think with him, he has this issue, and so does Patrick Rothfuss, is you have a very dedicated fan base, and progressively as each book has come out, the time to get the next book out has become longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
His last book, A Dance with Dragons, came out in 2011, I believe.
Yep.
So it's been 7 years. We're not going to be pushing into year 8 since the last book came out. That's a while.
Yeah.
Like that's a good long time.
And I get it. He's involved in a lot of stuff. Like he's helping write the Game of Thrones series. Like he just had another book. Well, he announced when he made this announcement that The Winds of Winter isn't coming out yet, that he did announce a book called Fire and Blood, which is a history of the Targaryens. It's not, like he stressed, it's not a novel, but it's a whole history. It's like 900 and some pages just about the Targaryens,
right.
Which sounds awesome, and I'll probably read it, but still, I'd rather have the next book in the series.
Well, we know George R.R. Martin, too. He's most likely to kill off the most important character before the next one, and that's the author.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
I love this series. It is one of my favorites. However, My patience is getting a little thin, only because I know that he has this book, and then he says one other book after that, A Dream of Spring, as the announced title. We'll see if that holds. Before the series is finished. And so, like, if we're pushing into year 8, and then maybe, let's say the book comes out, how long before that last book comes out? That's my worry, is that this is starting to drag on a bit. But I'm a huge fan. I mean, obviously, like, I named my motorcycle because, a lot of guys that ride motorcycles have a name for their motorcycle. I named my motorcycle Drogon because it looks like a black dragon, and then I put red LEDs under it so it looks like it breathes fire, which is, about appropriate for a guy like me.
Sure.
And
I need to give my
club name is Krypton.
I need to give mine some super ninja name since it makes no sound.
There you go.
But I didn't.
Silent Rever.
I haven't named my motorcycle. I did name the Corvette though, because of course.
See, yeah. I didn't name any of my other motorcycles, but this motorcycle, I got it and I barely had it, and someone's like, "Man, that bike looks like a black dragon. That thing is sweet looking." And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna call it Drogon." and then it was just a matter of time before I figured out the LED lights and did it up right, but. I'm a fan, but I mean, come on, George. Let's all the extra stuff you write we enjoy, but the fans want us, we came for the steak dinner. The baked potato that goes with it's nice. The veggies are nice, but we want the steak dinner. That's what we want. A little more steak.
Starting to move into the Martin Freeman camp with regards to Sherlock.
I'm not demanding he change things. I'm not demanding it goes in a certain direction. I just want it to happen. That's all.
Yeah, it's just frustrating to me because, like, he writes this 900 and some page history of the Targaryens. I don't need that. I want the next book in the series. I want to find out what's going to happen. Well, not what already happened. I want to find out what's happening next. And with the Game of Thrones series ending next year, like, I don't want to wait that long for the books. I just want to find out what for real is going to happen in the books because I'm assuming it's not exactly the same as the show.
Well, yeah, it can't be.
Yeah, we kind of touched on this a little bit when we were talking about Professor Tolkien and, like his aversion to Elvish, feeling it was too complicated. And I had provided some speculation that it was not necessarily something he wanted to do, but an approach he needed to get that creative element out. And I could easily see that kind of being the case here with George R. R. Martin with needing to write that history because that's where his thought process is in creating his universe. And that's what he's got to get out. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that too. However, it's hard because I have also heard George R. R. Martin himself say, like, he's got to stop going to as many cons and he needs to spend more time, not working on the show. Because, like, he was writing an episode of the TV show Game of Thrones, like, one a season. And then I think it was like a season or two ago, he said he was going to stop doing that because he needed to focus more on writing the books. And so he's going to attend less cons and he was going to, try to focus down a little more, which kind of seems a little funny coming from Martin because his books just continue to expand and grow with new characters. It feels like at an alarming rate. But so I don't know. I mean, hey, I'd rather have it be good and I'd rather have him do it right. The same thing I say with Patrick Rothfuss all the time. I would rather wait and have it be right. But at some point you gotta deliver that steak. We want that steak meal. At some point it has to happen.
Yeah.
Well, just like Uber Eats, sometimes you really don't want them to deliver the steak after all.
All right, so let's move on here. I got something to talk about. This is a gripe to pick. And I try not to get super negative on the podcast, and I think usually I do an okay job. But this one hits a little closer to home because it hits my wallet. And that's always a good way to get me riled up and my blood boiling. Movie Pass. I have extolled its virtue for quite a while now, saying how when they dropped the price to $9.95 a month, and you could see unlimited movies, well, almost unlimited, one per day, this thing was a deal. And at that, it was a deal. It was a heck of a steal. However, the Movie Pass company has been bleeding money right and left.
Surprise!
Right, I mean, because they're subsidizing your $10 a month for a $15 ticket in some markets, and if you only go once, they've lost money on you. People like me will go back over and over and over and over and over again to see something they're definitely losing money on. And Mitch Lowe, the CEO of MoviePass, has said that he thinks it's going to be profitable by sometime in 2019 because they figure they're eventually going to get enough people signed up, and it'll be kind of like the gym membership thing where you buy it but then you really don't use it and don't go. And I get it, like that does make some sense. However, that they're not finding that to be the case. It's hemorrhaging. This company's hemorrhaging money so much that they've announced some changes. They announced a new term of service, which caught me off guard because I was actually at the theater to pick up a ticket to go see Avengers Infinity War for my second time because I got the first one for free with a buddy. And then I was going to go and I had to like update the app, and then it gave me new terms of service. And there was this little message that says, you can only see a movie once. And I went, what? And then immediately, like about 10 minutes later, while I'm sitting in the theater, a buddy linked me this article saying from CSN, maybe KSL or CNN or KSL somewhere, said, MoviePass has just changed its service to now any new members that join. This is new members.
Right.
New members that join can only see 4 movies a month.
But hey, they get the music app.
Yay. Right, and they get some, who cares about some music app? No one cares. I mean, we got Pandora and Spotify and, whatever else for that kind of stuff.
Right.
But, so you can only see 4 a month, okay? Then they also said you cannot use MoviePass to go see a movie you have already seen with MoviePass. And they said this is to help cut down on the repeat viewings, and that applies to new and current users.
But Spence, that encourages you to see other movies.
That's true.
Expand your views.
That's true. However, here's the dilemma. If I were to use the MoviePass the way it was sold to me, the way it was advertised, where I could see 1 movie a day, there's never going to be 30 different movies in the theaters in a 1-month period.
Correct.
Because especially during the summer season when you get to all the big blockbusters, right? You get the Infinity War, you get the Deadpool, you get the Solo movie. Like over the stretch of like the next 4 to 5 weeks, you're going to get a couple smaller movies in there, but I doubt you're going to get 30 movies in there so I could go see a different movie every single day.
Sure.
So what I think is happening is this, and I think that they know that this happens, that a user, let's just say a user.
No one specific.
No one specific.
Just in general.
Just in general. A user says, I'm going to go purchase a ticket for Black Panther. And they use their MoviePass and they go see Black Panther. And then the next day, they go and purchase a ticket for Black Panther again, and then they hand that ticket off to, say, a spouse or a friend or a roommate or something.
Weird.
And then that person has a ticket to go see it.
That's just dastardly.
Well, technically, it's against terms of service, first of all, but second of all, they're trying to cut down on that, is my guess, my thinking, and they say, "Oh, we want to encourage you to see other movies." Here's the deal. I signed up to go see it because they said, go see the movie. Go see it as many times as you want. Like that was their big advertising push. And now they won't let you do that. And here's the real kicker. To some subscribers, they started sending an email saying, we are going to require you to take a photo of your ticket stub after you see it to prove you went to the movie, because I guess people have been using it to purchase gas or to purchase other things. Because if you think about it...
Yeah, there's nothing that tags what you see, just where you spend the money.
Right. Well, or not even that. You just have to be close to the theater, check in, and then you've got half an hour to swipe it, and it just loads $15 onto this MasterCard. So you could go across the street to the gas station and get $15 of smokes or candy or whatever and swipe it, because it's just like a prepaid MasterCard. Boom, it sees a $13.50 charge. That's it.
As long as you don't buy the same brand of smokes twice in back to back.
Or the same gummy worms. Yeah. So they're trying to cut down on people using it for something other than movie tickets.
Well,
I get that.
So I'm impressed with the cojones on whoever it was that proposed to their investors, we're going to give up to $450 a month in movies to people, and here's the kicker, for $10 a month.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
so brilliant. Oh my God. Yes, we're going to make money hand over fist.
Well, originally it was like $50 a month.
Even, yeah,
So,
for
I mean-
hardcore movie files, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're at a point where, I mean, it's obvious that they're hemorrhaging money. There's no way that it's sustainable under anybody's creative marketing scheme, and I get it. For me, to be honest, 4 movies a month, if that was what it was sold originally, I would have bought into MoviePass a lot sooner than I did. I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I knew it wasn't a sustainable model when it first came out. I was really kind of leery on even getting into MoviePass in the first place. So this model, to me, makes more sense. I'm involved in business. I know how money works. It's not even that difficult to figure out. This, to me, makes more sense. But the fact is that they've already sold it to just about everybody who wants to get in on it. And instead of being upfront with how they're going to make money in the first place or finding a realistic model, they're definitely pulling the carpet out from under people who were their main advertising.
Right.
This was word of
Yeah.
mouth.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So
I get the idea. I get the idea that they took it from $50 a month and they dropped it to 10, and they're trying to sign up so many millions of people and hoping that people don't go and don't use it because then they can make money. I get that. Like, that model works in a lot of things, but for movie people that go see movies, like, I probably would see maybe usually 1 movie a month. Maybe. I think Britta and I talked about it before I joined MoviePass.
yeah,
That I
that's
think-
where I'm at now.
Right.
I think I counted like 10 movies last year. I'm probably up over 10 movies already, and we're at the end of April this year because it encourages me to say, well, you know what?
just
I can
use my
go-
MoviePass.
I'll just use MoviePass. I can see something that's a little older, so I don't have to worry about crowds,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have to, shell out money for a babysitter. I'll just go by myself, and then, Britta's do something else, whatever.
And I'm honestly willing to see a lot more movies than I would have. Like, if I didn't do MoviePass, I'd just go see the specific movie I wanted to see. But now with MoviePass, I'm like, oh, I could just go see this movie and I could see that movie, and so movies I wasn't that interested in. So I
Right.
would be using it way more than if I didn't have one, kind of a thing. So
Questionable movie, she'll movie pass it.
yeah, I'll MoviePass
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
That's
like
our
Peter
phrase
Rabbit.
now, for real.
Yeah, Peter Rabbit comes out. I'm not going to go see Peter Rabbit,
Yeah.
but it's like, if there's
MoviePass
nothing
it.
else and I want to go see a movie, I'll movie pass it, whatever,
Yep.
It doesn't take away anything other than my time. Here's the thing I think Mitch Lowe should do. Sell the freaking data. That's what every other company does.
Yeah.
Fandango doesn't make their money on just, selling tickets and the little things. No, they're selling the data of what movies you purchase through their site to Paramount, to Universal, to Marvel, to Disney, whatever. So they have some metrics of tracking, how this is doing and how many people are buying tickets online and da-da-da-da-da. I don't care if you track and know just what movies I purchase with my MoviePass. I don't care. I don't even care if we could have some way that you could say for an additional like $10 a month, you can get a tub of popcorn every time you go to the movie because popcorn is super, super cheap and you run a deal with the whatever. And then you could, have some way of tracking, the candy that you buy. I don't care.
So let me ask this: as we're sitting here talking about it, we're talking about the skew of money being spent on movies. Because you and I, as consumers, are now spending $10 a month on movies. We're not spending $15 a ticket on movie.
Right.
How much do you think that affects the sales of how the box office earnings are grossed? Because they see it as a $15 purchase.
Right.
But if you've seen 5 $15 movies in a month, you're not really contributing $65 a month to the economy. And
I'm not, but MoviePass is. Because MoviePass pays that. So the company is paying it.
But so all these people seeing a lot of extra movies, though, that they wouldn't have otherwise, that also kind of has to play into gross earnings for a lot of movies that would not have accounted for otherwise.
Sure. So for instance, take a movie like Peter Rabbit, which, by the way, I did not see.
Didn't even
Starting to
MoviePass
suspect.
it.
I'm just trying to think of something I knew I would never see that was recent, and that was one of them. Peter Rabbit comes out, right? I did not movie pass that, but if I had movie pass that, yes, I never would have spent that money. But if I went because it was movie pass and I'd already used my movie pass in the month, my money's already gone essentially. So they're getting more money that they would never have gotten from me before. So does that increase their domestic box office? Sure, it does.
So, okay, so step 2 of that question then is we see, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but how much of an impact do you think that has on a movie's ability to break some records? Like, do you think there are really a significant amount of people that may not have seen Infinity Wars that are people that wouldn't have seen that did because they have Movie Pass? And how much would that have affected the records they may have broke or didn't break?
So I think it would affect smaller movies for sure.
Sure.
Independent movies, smaller movies, art house theater type of movies. But big blockbuster summer movies, like the reality is it's harder to get a ticket with your movie pass because you have to do it day of, you have to be on premises. Is it impossible? No, it can happen. Right. But I remember looking on Fandango for Infinity War tickets for this weekend, and I got to a queue where it's like, you're going to have to wait, a few minutes just to get in to look to see if there's seats. And I've never seen that before. So I know that this movie was such a big movie, and these big summer blockbuster movies are so big that I don't know if it drives up the box office that much. It will help, sure, but I mean, I don't know if it'd be that big of a boost.
I think the majority of people buying tickets for those movies on opening weekends are not movie pass people because they're going to buy their tickets ahead of time.
Yeah, they want to guarantee us.
Yeah, so there will be some movie passes, but not nearly as much as maybe the next weekend or something.
But it doesn't have to be that much to even make a difference. Let's say even 5% of... There's a 5% difference of what there speculatively might have been otherwise without movie pass. Most of the margins between record breaking are a lot less than 5%. So,
true.
Anyway, I just think it has an impact that it wouldn't have had otherwise, but I think it's a changing landscape, not necessarily an outlier, but it's something that movie houses and so forth are going to pay into. And if the movie pass people do it right, and they can prove some kind of effect on the data of records being broken by certain movies, that's how they can turn it around and sell it to the studios.
Let me ask you one last question on Movie Pass, and then we can move on. Do you think there's going to be a lawsuit by the customer base that signed up for I can see any movie I want as many times as I want because you said I can, and I can see it, if I can see 30 movies in a month, and now you're changing things saying, blah, 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 changing terms of service. Do you think that there's going to be a lawsuit that's going to come against Movie Pass?
Will there be a lawsuit? Absolutely. Will it have any effect? No.
I think there'll be
counted as like a switch and bait.
No, so we live in an age of software as a service, and they are clear in their terms and conditions that they reserve the right to make modifications to the plan at any given time.
Yeah, that's true.
They've protected themselves adequately, but that's the nature of the service industry anyway.
It's not going to stop anyone from trying.
Right.
So here's the thing. I think a lawsuit's going to happen. It would have to become a really big lawsuit, like, with multiple people jumping onto it to make an impact. But I think if they get hit with some sort of big lawsuit, even if it can't get dismissed, they're going to have attorneys. And if they're already bleeding money right and left, I don't think they're going to want a lawsuit on top of that and have to worry about that, because every extra penny that goes out the door is just, one day closer to closing the doors.
It depends. So. I think if it's a model that they can demonstrate, I think the biggest risk that they have is the movie studios or the movie houses, in how they may, build up their partnerships with Movie Pass.
Sure.
If this works out to being a model that the AMC and everybody else can actually make money off of and actually get a demonstrable value now, they will back Movie Pass, and that lawsuit that may potentially come won't really even matter too awful much. Now, if this drives people away from the movie theaters and this demonstrates that it's a loss of value to the movie houses, then I think that's where we really have a problem potentially.
Interesting. All right, well, let's move on, because I'm fired up about the whole Movie Pass thing. I was like, I want to go see this Infinity War like 17 times with my movie pass, but no, I can see it once.
Yeah, I would have. I definitely would have. I mean, I saw Force Awakens 7 times in movie theaters. I would have liked to have been able to do that for $10 instead of
70,
something,
90,
right.
whatever. Yeah. All right, Stu, what do you have for us this week?
Well, there are other franchises beyond Marvel and Movie Pass. And
What?
That's impossible.
You wouldn't know it these days. I mean, there's a series of things, whatever, Star Trek. I don't know if you've heard of it or not. Anyway.
Star Wars? What?
All right, that's it. I'm done. I'll be right over. We're going to blows.
And he's gone.
No, so Star Trek, there's definitely been some questionable direction. Some people like the direction that they took with the newer movies, especially with the reboot, all that kind of stuff. But one thing has always held true, and that's there has never been a female director of a Star Trek movie.
Correct.
So, Star Trek Beyond, the last one that came out, kind of lukewarm. It was not... I like the newer movies, honestly, but the Star Trek Beyond was a little dead. Didn't really go anywhere. They're looking to kind of shake things up. So Star Trek 4, which I'm sure they'll have some clever name, they've got S.J. Clarkson will be directing. So that's an interesting twist to the Star Trek era.
Yeah, I think that's well and good. I mean, all well and good. I think, gosh, like, get the right director. If the right director is a woman, great. If it's a man,
yeah,
great.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah, get a good director. And if she's a great director, by all means, man, let's get more great directors. Whatever.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I'm actually excited at the idea of having a female director if she's the right one for the job. But I look at her resume. She's mostly done TV stuff. Jessica Jones, that was okay. I thought it was good. I didn't think it was great. It was definitely a different kind of story, though, that I think had its place. But then The Defenders, which is definitely by leaps and bounds the least highest rated MCU Netflix series out of all the mix there.
Right.
It was just very poorly directed in the first place. Not a great story. Acting fell short, but the direction on that movie was kind of horrible. Or on the series. I don't know that I want to see the Defenders in Star Trek.
Yeah. You know, it was really interesting when... So this is a little controversial, but let's back up to Wonder Woman, right? I've
got the soundtrack in my head now, thanks.
Yeah. Wonder Woman!
No, not that one.
Dang it. Wonder Woman came out, right, and it was a female superhero lead. It was directed by Patty Jenkins, a female director, and in the media, it was over and over and over. You kept hearing, female this, female that, female this, female that. And I'm like, whatever, that's great, but it was a great movie. And I think the director and the actress and all that, like, they did a really good job, and so that helped. But James Cameron came out, and James Cameron really is getting kind of to become a curmudgeon, but he kind of came out and said, listen, we need to stop with all the backslapping on Wonder Woman and talking about Patty Jenkins and, and being a female this and female that. He's like, it was a good movie. He's like, but just putting women into these roles just to say we have women in these roles, doesn't actually make good movies. People have to actually make good movies, all the people involved, from the lowest person on the production all the way to the top. And of course, he got hit as being, sexist and this and that at the time. But he makes an interesting statement that he really, like, when you get down to it, he's saying we need to celebrate good work by good people, not just good work because of the gender that they belong to.
Sure.
And so, like, I get that. And so, like, I wonder if, like, is this Star Trek thing is this the best director, do you think? Or is this more of a, hey, we haven't done this before, so let's go this direction so we can say that we've gone this direction?
I think the attempt is to go in a new direction, but take the gender out of it. And if I'm to look at the director for Jessica Jones, The Defenders, and Life on Mars, merit speaks for itself, and I'm not so excited. So
Fair enough.
I mean, that's where it is. I do, yeah, James Cameron, though, he's definitely putting off a lot of people. The problem is with that is that, he kind of contradicts himself in spirit, because Wonder Woman was a good movie.
Right, exactly.
And it did very well, and it did all these things, and so to kind of discount that it was done by women when women were successful at doing that very thing, there's not really much to stand on there. So
Well, that, and he wrote a phenomenal lead character in Sarah Connor for Terminator and Terminator 2, where she was a strong, powerful woman, who really became fierce and fearless in her own right and what she was doing. And he championed that for like a long time. Like, look at me, I'm the champion of, strong women characters. And then he's, a few years later, a decade later, he's like, well, let's stop all this glad handing and back patting. I was like, yeah, but didn't you do that like a decade ago? So
he's enlightened now.
That's what it is. That and, 7 more Avatar movies, which, anyway. Still his recent comments about like, we got to be done with these superhero movies. It's like, really?
So we could focus on aliens.
So we can focus back on, all the alien movies you want to do? Anyway, that's all I had. One last thing. We're recording on Monday night, which we, usually do. Tomorrow's going to be Tuesday. By the time you listen to this, it'll be 2 days in the past. So this is going to be a little time travel trippiness here for you, super friends.
I feel like I'm in the future already.
I know. In the year 2000. Anyone? No. Okay. We're getting a new Ant-Man and Wasp trailer dropping tomorrow. So if you're listening to this, it's already happened. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it met up to your expectations. But for us, right now, living in the present, that's tomorrow, and I'm excited because I really enjoyed Ant-Man. It was a good movie. It had some issues, but like I liked that it was a kind of a different movie, and it's a different character, and it's got a little bit of a different feel to it. I'm excited for this next one. I want to see what happens, and I can't wait to get it. And we don't have to wait that long because I think it comes out towards the middle of the summer. I think.
Yeah, it's early June.
Yeah.
I was surprised by Ant-Man, to be honest. I did not think that I was going to like it, but at about that time I started to realize that, and I was still kind of high from Winter Soldier.
Yep.
And I mean, I know it wasn't that close to it, but still kind of realizing that each of the Marvel franchises, they fill a very different role, and they reach a different audience, which is kind of what's brilliant about putting it all together, is everyone's kind of got their favorite, not just favorite character, but you also identify with the thematic elements of each of the different series and so forth. Anyway, but Ant-Man was like, it was more family accessible. It was kind of an underdog movie. It told a different kind of story than the other superhero movies. So that kind of caught me by surprise, and it was pretty good. Filled with action, some good quips. I liked it more than I thought, and I'm excited to see the new one for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I kind of have a thing for Evangeline Lilly, so she's kind of cute.
Well, don't tell your wife.
She knows.
Too late.
Yeah, we were married when Lost was on.
Not a fan of her.
I know. You're not. It's okay. It's okay.
Kate. I just don't like Kate. Anyway, that's a whole other podcast.
A whole other podcast.
That's gonna be my next podcast. A whole other podcast.
Women Britta hates.
I don't hate her. I just not gonna get into it.
Okay, sure. I'm not gonna judge your hate or lack of hate.
Oh, thanks.
I'm just gonna say this one last thing on her, and we can move on.
I'm crying on the outside.
And Britta's just shaking her head. Okay, last week Stu and I had a discussion, and we ended up talking about God of War and Cory Barlog that made it, and we kind of talked about
my new hero.
How important the Metacritic score was for that game, and about basically we kind of had a conversation then about reviews. Do professional reviews or friend reviews influence what you watch, read, play? And then we also asked, what do you use, professional or friend reviews? And we got a number of answers. So let's start, as we always do, over on the good old emails. We'll start with Peter Christensen. It says, Dear Nerds, I've got to say, Stu is a great co-host.
Oh.
You are nerdier than Steve, but Stu can get nerdier than you, Spencer, and lets you be the straight man, which is awesome.
Wait a minute.
He says, my kids for sure know it's okay for men to cry. Rudy, Dead Poet Society, The Iron Giant, and basically everything from Pixar have proven that point. He says, I saw Infinity Wars last night, and oh boy, I'm afraid anything I say would spoil something. Stu says, just see it. And then he's basically put something that I'm not going to read. But we'll get there. Then he says, I definitely use reviews, but it's not universal. I rarely use recommendations of friends because I have a very particular taste, but I do appreciate when I find a review I'm in sync with. For example, John Gruber of Daring Fireball for Apple Software, or Dana Stevens of Slate for movie reviews. I agree with Stu that reviews are useful for finding more information about a product so that I can make my own judgments. Cheers, Peter.
I like him.
Peter's good people. Peter's real good people. Okay, going again to email. My brother, Josh Stapleton, says, do I buy into hype? Do reviews influence me? I'd like to say no, but of course they do. Now, that is not to say I run out and buy or not buy things solely based on a critic. However, if multiple people all agree a game or movie is fantastic, I might be more inclined to go out and consume the media. That said, I'm more inclined to listen to friends with similar taste or dismiss friends' opinions if they've given me a bad opinion. I'm looking at you, Steve Madura, ever since he recommended Bringing Down the House in 2003. I can't take any of his recommendations seriously. Rest in peace, Steve.
Ouch.
It says, it ends up being an amalgamation of both critics and friends that tend to influence me, but I would put it 60-40, with 60 being the opinion of friends. Thanks, Josh Stapleton. Yeah, he always brings up that Bringing Down the House reference anytime we talk about reviews. He's like, Steve steered me wrong.
That's kind of driving someone off a cliff.
Yeah, kinda.
Or bringing down the house on them.
Steve's not here to defend himself.
I know. But that's okay, because in Steve's fairness, I did recommend the old Mortal Kombat movie to him back when we were teenagers and said it was the greatest thing ever.
It is.
Is it though? I mean, go back and watch it.
It was for 15-year-old me, anyway.
That's what I said. For 15-year-old me, it was like, this is a video game movie. This is super awesome.
Going back to guilty pleasures, I actually still like them both. I won't lie.
Both? I think they made like 5 of them.
The Mortal Kombat, there's only 2 official movies. Mortal Kombat and Annihilation.
I thought they did one other one. Maybe you're right. Let's go over to Facebook. Caleb Albers says, first, just want to say, Marvel fatigue will never kick in for me. Ever. Also, Stu, Age of Ultron wasn't the worst Marvel movie. Just saying. But getting to the question, I typically don't look at reviews for movies before I go to them. I always watch the trailer to them first and base my level of needing to see it on that. And if my friend Johnny Rose goes to see a movie first, he'll always tell me what he thought of it, and depending on his recommendation, I may go see a movie sooner rather than later. That was the case with Jumanji and Ready Player One. I waited to see them for a long time because I wasn't too interested in seeing them, but because of his reaction to them, I went to see them earlier than I'd planned and did not regret it in the least. Something else I do with critics, I like to see how certain ones rate the movies that I really enjoy, try to get a picture of their taste, but sadly, with most critics nowadays, they seem to be overly critical of superhero movies and most kid films. But what I think they fail to realize, those movies are made for fans and kids. And a lot of critics I've seen are neither. So in short, I form my own opinion based on the trailer, but will bump how soon I see something based on a friend. Have a great episode, Krypton and guest, which is aka Stu and Britta.
That's an interesting approach. I like it. Kind of take something that you already know you love or you hate, kind of look at previous reviews for those kinds of things and see what kind of lines up with what you're doing. It's unfortunate that that's not still working out, but I like it.
Yeah.
And Age of Ultron was the worst.
I mean, Thor Dark World was pretty rough. I just got to say.
Oh, I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, it was better on the second viewing, though.
That's true, Britta. It is better on the second viewing. Also, you got to remember that The Incredible Hulk was the second movie in the MCU.
I liked it.
and I really liked it, but it definitely feels like the forgotten MCU movie more than any other. It is,
because I didn't even know it was part of it until we started rewatching them.
There you go.
I mean, I think that's kind of both Iron Man and Hulk were before. I really don't believe that there was a great big master plan yet by that point. And I think it was driven by the success of the early ones, and they wanted to tie them together, but I can't imagine they had any idea it would become what it is now.
Well, next week we'll get Kevin Feige on here and we'll ask him.
Yes.
Okay, going over
A, that's unbelievable. B, I think he would still lie about it.
That's probably true.
Probably true.
Fake MCU news.
Hashtag.
Going over to Twitter. Burn at Dantes_Belmont says, if already made my mind, no review will change my decision. If on the fence or not sure what I want, I would probably read or ask a friend for a recommendation. I like that he says, like, if I've already made up my mind, nothing's going to change it. Like, no review, no anything. Because isn't that how it should be? Because not everyone likes the same things. And, you know, if you've made up your mind you're going to go see that World of Warcraft movie come hell or high water, you're going to go do it because, you know, you love it or you're super into it. You know, I like that. I can respect that.
Yeah, I kind of think that, but then I have been wrong before about my own tastes, and I've had that impression. Well, no, I've had that impression. Like a big one was Elder Scrolls Online. I had no interest in that. I was 100% certain I was going to hate it. I've played other MMOs. It didn't seem like something I was going to like, and I stayed away from it, despite the advice of people that I usually trusted. And it took me a couple years before I tried it. And granted, the game got better over time, but just the general premise of it, I actually I love it quite a bit. I don't play it too much because I've got so much on my plate, but I was dead wrong on my own part, and I wish I had listened to other people.
Huh. Okay. Nice counterpoint there, Stu.
That's what I do. Devil's advocate.
I like it. Super Friends, thank you so much for reaching out and taking the time to answer our question. We'll always post the question in all the usual places, which is typically Facebook and Twitter. But then, of course, you can respond in all the usual places as well. And if you're new to the show, here's where you can respond. You can get us on email, which is fortofnerd@gmail.com. You can respond to us on Facebook, which is facebook.com/fortofnerd. You can get us on Twitter @fortofnerd. Or you can call in the old telephone number, which is 801-477-7687. You could also leave a review or a comment on the iTunes, but I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'm probably not going to go there or not the iTunes, but the YouTube. If you leave a comment on the YouTube for the question of the week, I probably won't catch it, but
I will check them. That's where I listen, is YouTube.
Stu is there, and Stu will let me know. That's why he's here, man. That's why he's the co-host.
I'm the YouTube connection. I bring 3 viewers from there. That really kind of doubled the demographic.
Ooh, big numbers.
No, I do have some work friends that are probably listening. So hit me on Slack at work.
Nice. That would be a Slack #FortofNerd or whatever. I don't know what it is. But anyway, we appreciate it. Britta, how can our super friends help us this week?
They can rate us on iTunes. There you go.
Okay. And how do they do that? Is that like a computer thing? Is it like the keyboard? How does that work?
Really? Go to iTunes. Rate us. If we deserve 5 stars, give us 5 stars. If you think Spencer kind of maybe not so great, give him like 3. You know, whatever.
So like, is there like a rating system, like stars or thumbs up or like likes, or I mean, how does that all work? I'm unfamiliar.
I just said stars. Were you not listening?
Oh, I
oh wait, I'm his wife. I forget.
So, super friends, if you have any way to rescue me from this hell that I'm in right now, direct call
guys.
only.
Okay, so let's move forward here. We had a conversation prior to the podcast. Usually when we do a movie club, especially if the movie's new, we try to go spoiler free and we try to talk about the podcast. Talk about the movie on the podcast, spoiler free for a little while, and then we give you plenty of warning and we get into spoilers. However, in our discussion this week, talking about this movie, we came to the conclusion that we cannot discuss more than maybe 5 minutes before we're going to be getting into spoilers, and it's going to be extremely hard not to ruin it for people. So with that being said, this is your warning. The entire discussion tonight on Avengers Infinity War is going to be filled with spoilers.
Well, one thing. It is not the Marvel movie you're expecting. It's nothing like the previous ensemble movies. Go see it. That's all
Then
I can
come
say,
back and
non-spoiler.
listen.
So Stu, now you just spoiled that it's not like the other ones. Come on, man.
Well, see, can't even get away from that.
Spoiler,
you already gave the spoiler
spoilers.
warning. Doesn't matter.
So you've been
Go
warned.
see the movie. Come back.
5,
Listen.
4, 3, 2, 1. We are now going to spoil this movie. And we're gonna
Holy
talk
crap.
about it. So,
Holy crap.
Let's talk about Avengers
Right?
Infinity War right off the bat. Let's just take each one of us. Give me your 20,000 foot view, like your just general overview of the movie, general impressions, and then we will dig down into it. Britta, you go first.
Okay. It kind of was what I was expecting, but also very much not at all what I was expecting, and I need therapy. Like, let's talk, because I need therapy. I love it. And I'm stressed.
Okay, Stu.
That's my top level.
My problem with Age of Ultron and Civil War was that they were trying to do too much with too many characters, and it just became difficult to have one cohesive story. So the way that they solved that problem with Infinity War was brilliant in that it's no longer about the superheroes. This was Thanos' movie.
Exactly.
Everybody else was playing second fiddle to him.
Yeah.
And that was the cohesion that it needed.
Yeah.
My overall view of the movie was that this was the Marvel movie that I didn't know that I needed in my life. And that I'm glad that the Russo brothers understood that I needed it, because there's been so many movies that follow the Marvel formula.
Yes.
And this one does not. It is different. And it breaks from a lot of the traditional way that Marvel movies go. And that was a really good thing to me. And when we get to this point, I'm going to tell you something about the end of the movie when we get there, when we kind of talk about it, that I kept thinking in my seat as the movie was coming to an end, and I knew it had to be coming to an end, that I really hoped that they were going to leave it the way they did, and they did. They left it exactly the way that I wanted it to, because I sat and went, this is genius. This is not going to be the formula that everyone's used to, so it's going to be different. It's going to break the mold in a lot of respects. Like you said, this was the first Marvel movie that focused on a villain. It was Thanos' story.
Yeah.
And that was perfect. So, our overviews. Let's dig down into this. Let's start real quick before we get into like all the plot stuff. Let's talk about the box office things that are going on, because there's some big news going on with the box office. Now, did you guys have any guess or any kind of clue as to what you thought it was going to do at the box office?
Yeah, I knew it was going to be crazy. There's no way it wasn't going to be crazy. I didn't know exactly how high it was going to reach, but I'm not surprised.
So it made domestically over the weekend $258.2 million, which makes it the biggest domestic opening of all time. It beat out Star Wars The Force Awakens, which was the current record holder. It debuted for the biggest worldwide opening of all time with $382.7 million overseas, which I like with everything with the domestic, like was like $100 million more than Fate of the Furious. Here's the cool thing though.
I thought that was so awesome that Fate of the Furious was number one before.
Was the number one, right? Here's the interesting thing. The movie hasn't opened in China or Russia. I wondered why they didn't open it in China and Russia the exact same weekend that it opened everywhere else worldwide. Because wouldn't that helped push the movie even further up the charts for its opening weekend?
I have a feeling, and I've got absolutely no data to support this. However, Knowing the climates of communist countries and wanting to control messaging, there's one specific character that I would be very surprised wouldn't be cut out from both markets. And I don't know if you're ready to talk about that yet.
Okay. Let's get there in a second.
Yeah.
We'll hit a couple more of these. Okay. Biggest superhero movie opening of all time. The original one was The Avengers with 207. And of course, now this is blown it out. Biggest Saturday. This is the one that's crazy to me. Biggest Saturday of all time in North America. It took in $83 million on Saturday. Obviously, like the Friday night and now kind of the Thursday night spillover, right, is becoming the big thing. Biggest Saturday of all time in North America. Biggest Sunday of all time in North America was 69.
I contributed.
$2 million. No, that's right. You and your movie pass on Sunday.
That's the whole reason I went on Sunday, just to boost that number.
Then we also get numbers like this. The biggest opening of all time in numerous markets. South Korea, Mexico, Brazil, the Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, India. Boom. All set records there. It actually was the number 2 debut in Australia behind Force Awakens. So it couldn't overcome Star Wars in Australia.
Oh, I thought Point Break would have held the record there.
No. It got it again in France, Germany, Spain, and the second best superhero showing in Italy. I don't know what would have been the best superhero movie in Italy. Zorro as a superhero movie. Just all these crazy box office numbers. So let's talk this, because here's the thing. Right now, 258 point. I just want to stress that again. 258.2 million in the U.S. and its total is well over $500 million worldwide in its opening weekend, right? 640.9 million. $640 million. Where do you think this movie's going to end up when it's all said and done?
Sent into space? I don't know. There's no metric for this at this point.
I think that this is easily going to become the number 1 box office of all time, unadjusted for inflation.
Ooh, that's interesting that you phrase it like that. Do you think this is the movie that could finally topple Gone with the Wind?
No, because Gone with the Wind is like 2.7 billion or something like that. It's a crazy number, and you got to remember that tickets were like 15 cents back then, and B, no one had televisions, so you just would go back to the movie theater over and over.
All you did.
And now you can't even do that with MoviePass for the same movie.
Right. But the other thing is, too, is like,
pay your own money.
Think about this, and I've said this before, but like, if you had to go back to that movie over and over and over and over and over again, and it sold so many tickets, like, that movie's not a short movie. It's not like a 90-minute movie. That thing's like 4.5 hours with an intermission. So, like, you must have been, like, really committed to seeing Gone with the Wind back in the day.
They didn't have a whole lot else to do, let's be honest.
Yeah, I don't think it'll overtop Gone with the Wind and adjusted for inflation. However, I do think that it's going to be unadjusted for inflation. I do think this will be the number 1 movie of all time.
I don't.
Really?
I think Avengers 4 is going to take it because of Infinity War.
You may not be wrong.
Because not only does it live on its own, with its own trailers and its own hype, but you've got everything pushing for all of this crazy attendance that's going on now for Infinity Wars. It's just, there's no way that it can't beat Infinity War.
Okay. Well, we will have to see, I guess, but it's gonna be it's gonna be a monster. So it's doing big business. Why? Let's get into it. Why is this movie doing big business?
Because it's so good.
I just don't even know where to start is the problem.
They rewrote their formula. They went off formula. I don't even think this is a formula. They did things that people were afraid of. They realized people's fears. Characters were in fact killed off, not just the big reveal with everything, but they took the series to a new place that wrapped up everything that 10 years of background was building up.
Right.
They they topped this cake perfectly. I don't know how they could have done it any better.
So here's what I love about this, right? You alluded to this, Stu, 10 years of buildup. We get to this movie, and right off the bat, like, it jumps into the action right where Thor Ragnarok basically left off, right? Because if you remember the end of Thor Ragnarok, Thor gets all the remaining Asgardians onto the ship. They take off, right? And then in that post-credit scene, you see Thanos' ship hovering down in front of them. And
Which surprised me, I might add, because I thought they were going to pick it right up with Black Panther, which is now kind of an Act 2 piece of Infinity War rather than...
Right. And those, I think those, like, thematically, I think those two movies are probably run pretty similar in time as far as, like, what's happening. But they pick right up where Thor Ragnarok left off. And basically it starts off with, like, all the ship with all the Asgardians being destroyed. And Thanos and his minions, the children of Thanos, are on the ship. And like the first thing that happens is we see basically Thor just being just dragged around like a little puppet by Thanos, and he's looking for the space stone. He's looking for the Tesseract. Loki's there, and I'm thinking, okay, I kind of thought from the trailers Loki was going to, give in to him and like bow down to him and like try to work with him. But Loki, that's not Loki. Like, his character's kind of shifted a little bit. He understands how dangerous Thanos is. He tries to kill Thanos, and that doesn't work. The Hulk tries to attack Thanos and looks like he's beating him up. And then, of course, Thanos gets the upper hand there.
And Thanos doesn't just lay waste to him with magic. He goes fisticuffs.
Right.
And beats the crap out of Hulk.
Yeah. Right. But at that point, he only has the Power Stone. So, like, he only has the ability to be, like, super strong. So he couldn't do some of the other things he could do later in the film.
Well, I mean, like, weapons and... I mean, he's got all the tech. Everything that we already knew Thanos to have. Even then, he pulverizes them with his fists.
Right. Yeah. What the interesting moment right in the very beginning for me was Thanos picks up Loki by the neck and literally just crushes his neck, his windpipe, and you see him like holding Loki's like limp body, and then he just dumps it at Thor's feet. And that was a moment when I realized, holy crap, I knew people were going to die in this movie, but like I didn't expect Loki to die, because Loki has been an amazing villain, an amazing foil for Thor throughout the entire MCU history, and Tom Hiddleston that plays him is excellent. So I'm like, they're going to kill him off right away, like within the first 5 minutes of the film. And that to me was a big signal shift saying, hey, be prepared. More's coming.
Yep.
So that happens. That was a big moment for me. What about for you guys? Like, what were like the big moments, like the jaw-dropping moments for you? In the beginning, the middle, the end, whenever. It doesn't matter.
For me, most of it was towards the end. I really dug Doctor Strange. Like they could have brought Doctor Strange in one of two ways. There could have been this big awkward side story or something. Instead, it's just Iron Man and Doctor Strange kind of meet each other, and it's a little awkward, and they have some trade some words there for a minute, but it was kind of seamless, and Doctor Strange held his own as far as the cast was concerned. But I loved everything that involved him, because it wasn't as unique as I expected it to be. I thought it would feel really out of place. Even though I like Doctor Strange, the movie itself feels different from the other Marvel movies. So I kind of thought that would blend in, or that would contrast, but it blended in. I thought it was really well done. And I love the way that they incorporated the way that they used magic, just with some of the action scenes.
Yeah,
that was pretty brilliant.
Yeah. I really, really loved the, some of the backstory of Thanos and his connection with Gamora, and how you see her history with him and how she came to be a, quote unquote, child of Thanos, daughter of Thanos, and how their relationship, progressed over the years, because that really is a huge part of this movie. And, a lot of that, obviously, with things that happen later with Gamora and everything. Like, I just found that really interesting because I think it explains a lot about her character, but that it also gives us some more context explaining Thanos and the way he's thinking and why he's doing what he's doing and everything. So I actually really enjoyed that.
So let's talk about Thanos' motivation, right? Because that's the crux of the whole movie. That right. Thanos claims that he grew up on Titan and that the resources of Titan was running out, and he presented a plan to basically make it so that there would be enough food for all the people. But that his plan was, we're going to basically have a random lottery and kill half the population so that there's food for the other half of the population. That's like the crux of his thing. And then, he expands that to, there's too many people in the universe.
Yeah.
So let's kill half of the universe. That way there's enough supplies for these people.
As he puts it, he's cursed with that knowledge.
Right. Right. So from a standpoint of a villain, right? Because I think the best villains are the ones that have that they're believable, not necessarily in what they do, but like their motivation is believable, like something, the way they interpret it, something
There's
happened.
A certain practicality.
Yeah, and that they realize that, like, to them, their way their mind works is that this is the only way, that what they're trying to do is justified and rational and, acceptable, even though it's completely not. Do you buy that with Thanos's rationality for, him going on a murder spree?
Absolutely. It all kind of clicked as soon as that was kind of explained, and it makes that practical sense. It solves problems. It's just sometimes when you look at those villainous motivations like you spoke of, it's really a good solution if you can 100% strip away the morals and ethics behind it. Practically speaking, yes, suddenly we are now sustaining our life with double the amount of resources. Instead, it's really half the amount of people with the same amount of resources, but the same principle exists. And
the resource to people ratio is double.
Yes.
Let's break down the science of genocide.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of those villains who are just evil for the sake of being evil. What you find in various things, or you don't have their backstory, you don't know why. And I like that they fully explain this. Like, he talks about the history, he explains it to Gamora, he explains it to other people. Like, this is why I'm doing it. Everyone's gonna love me when they realize that I've done this noble thing, and I'm the only one who can do it because nobody else has the guts to do this thing. And, he full believes that this is right, this is the only way to save all these people. And, when they have a really strong motivation and they really believe that what they're doing is actually good and right, no matter how wrong it is, it makes them so much more believable, and it really, it puts more, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, behind the villain. Like, they just have more
gravitas,
I guess, something like that, and so it's, I don't know. I really like it. It just fills the story out so much better, I think.
So Thanos decides, he finds out about the Infinity Stones. He's going to try to unite them all, so he has the ability, with a snap of his fingers, to kill off half of the entire population of the entire galaxy. And that's his master plan. And I've seen some people say online, well, why not just, use the Infinity Gauntlet to provide food for everyone and double the resources and not kill everyone? First of all,
that would just be a dumb story, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that doesn't make him a villain. Plus, you also got to think, if he grew up in a world where there was a food shortage, and he came up with this idea that this is going to do it, but people wouldn't listen to him, and then eventually, they called him the Mad Titan because he wanted to kill everyone. Like, he formed this idea out of a desire to do good, maybe, but also out of the necessity of his environment. And so his brain's going to be wired to think that direction versus like, hey, I'm just going to, snap my fingers and bread will magically appear for everyone. So cool. I believe it. I think it's good. I think it's a good motivation, but I think Stu hit it right on the head. It's a solution if you strip out ethics and morals.
Right.
I mean, it does work technically. But of course, this is going to happen, and, you know, Thor is getting his crap kicked out of him. Hulk gets shot back, you know, by the Bifrost, by Heimdall before he dies, to warn everyone. And he lands... Oh,
yeah, by the way, Heimdall dies. That was
right?
cool.
Which I was super sad about that, because he's one of my favorite characters.
Yep.
Yeah. Idris Elba.
I'm really depressed about that one.
So he bites the dust, right? And Banner comes back and goes to warn everyone. And you got to remember, like, and I thought about this, especially when Tony Stark shows up, like, Banner hasn't seen anyone in a few years because he left at the end of Ultron. And so he's been gone for about 2 years or so, or a little more than 2 years. So of course, like, he has that reunion where he sees, you know, Natalie, you know, Natasha Romanoff. And, you know, she's like, hey, he's like, hey, Nat. And, like, you kind of have that little moment like, oh, lovers getting back together for the first time. And, of course, like, everyone has that moment where they see that. And then, of course, Rhodey's like, this is awkward, which is like, like that comedy, that moment there was perfect for me because I was like, yes, that's exactly what it'd be like if, you know, you were in that room and you realize, you know, hey, he just up and abandoned his date for 2 years. That's the ultimate. That's the ultimate stand-up, right? Yeah,
that did feel a little weird, but they did it well.
So, how did you feel about, like, the coming together of everyone? Because obviously Tony's there, and then Banner kind of calls in Captain America. Like, did you feel like getting the band back together felt satisfying, or did you feel like it felt forced at all?
I felt it was. I think they had to have a situation larger than them to have it work. And I know there's really the character aspect of it, and then there's the meta aspect of it. And I already kind of talked about the meta aspect of it, that with it being Thanos' story, there's not so much conflict between all the other major characters fighting for screen time, more or less, or who's got the best one-liner. And I think it forces them all to just become part of something that's sweeping them away. Like, there was very little choice in what they did except to say who's following whom. And otherwise, they're really kind of on the reactionary side of everything that's going on. And I think it really shines for them in that regard because it's not Tony Stark's master plan. It's not Thor trying to win back something. You know, they're doing what's necessary to overcome this, and that's all they can really focus on. I just love the way that all came together like that.
Yeah, I feel like it's one of the few situations that could bring, you know, like, Captain America and Iron Man back together. You know, like, he was really hesitant to call, you know, Iron Man was really hesitant to call Captain America about what was going on, but they knew they needed his help. And I do like that, like, they came together, they're like, okay, and they've made some comments about, you know, Civil War and some of that stuff. And then pretty quickly they split up again. You know, and Iron Man was...
Well, Iron Man and Captain America never share a scene in the movie. If you think about it, like, Iron Man basically goes up to, as he called it, the Flying Donut to save Doctor Strange and Spider-Man in New York, but Captain America is over in Scotland trying to save Vision and Scarlet Witch. And then they go back to the Avengers headquarters and they meet Rhodey there, but Cap and Iron Man never share screen time at all in the entire movie, which I thought was really interesting because they still kind of, even though you know that they're all kind of working towards the same goal of, you know, defeating Thanos and protecting the Earth, they still don't have that moment where they understand that they're teaming up together, or that they have that moment. Like, that wasn't there, and I think that was intentional.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you look at the scene leading up into where they're meeting him for the first time, you've got the Defense Service, whatever the heck they call themselves. I mean, it's really S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
Yeah.
They want to arrest them. That's still alive and well. That's still the ongoing backstory between the
Sokovia Accords are still going.
So that they had the choice there of that playing a part into this and potentially distracting from the story they want to tell with Thanos, or they let it go. They let you know that it's still alive and well, but they don't put them together on screen, and they don't have to be distracted, and they can tell the story they want to tell unhindered.
Yep. I did notice that, and I went, yeah, they're not gonna. I think we'll get there, but we're not there right now. So this is all going on. Banner comes back. He's telling everyone, Cap gets called. There's big fight. And what did you guys think of the foursome of the children of Thanos? His minions, his acolytes. Did you like them? Did they interest you, Britta? You get us kicked off here.
Yeah, I was. I don't know why I didn't think that he had a ton of people with him. Like, because every time we see him, it's just Thanos. And obviously they talk about the children of Thanos. I just kind of I don't know, didn't really think too much about it. But when you start seeing them coming in and fighting everybody, I was just like, oh, wow, these guys are actually really powerful. And, but they're like the typical guys that the Avengers have fought before. Like, we know they can defeat them no matter what their power is, and and they kick some of their butts. Like, it was really good. But I don't know, they were interesting.
I found them uneventful. They're probably the one element of the film I don't really have a strong opinion about, which is good, because if I had a strong negative opinion, that would have been a distraction. But I do think they were kind of classic henchmen.
Yep.
Kind of done up. I mean, they were worthy of Thanos, if that makes any difference there. Especially the one that went up against Doctor Strange, I did enjoy.
Right.
But would I see them in their own movie? No, they're not worth anything. But are they a necessary component to Thanos? Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, not on their own. And so I looked at their names: Cull Obsidian, Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, and Corvus Glaive. Ebony Maw was the guy that kind of was the voice maybe of the one who was like, bow down, you have been chosen. Like, he kind of had this almost like this religious overtone to him. Like, this is a holy calling to be killed by Thanos and to be numbered amongst one of his dead, and you will serve a greater purpose. And like that for me added just a little extra element of like, these guys aren't just like your typical henchmen from the Joker's minions and like the 1989 Batman movie, but this is someone who has a deep-seated belief that what they're doing is a holy calling, which makes them even more scary, because that they're not going to give up. They're not going to see the error of their way. They're going to follow through to the very bitter end.
Yep,
but,
fair enough.
But not super. So let's get into this. Lots of characters. Who's your favorite character, or who's your favorite characters in the movie? Because we got a ton of them jam-packed in here. Britta, I'll let you go first.
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I mean, in this movie, I really liked Thor in this movie. I always like Thor. Who doesn't always like Thor? But
here
I really
we go.
Exactly. But first of all, I like that he gets mixed up with Guardians of the Galaxy, because that was fun. That was like, there was moments of comedy in this movie, just some one-liners and stuff, but that part was just fun. I really enjoyed that. But I liked his story because he's probably one of the most, I don't want to like fight over characters or anything, but to me, he seems like one of the most powerful ones. Like, he knows he can go get this weapon made it's like the only chance that they have against Thanos, right?
He's a god.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he has otherworldly powers. Like, it's different than some of the other, and he's obviously different from Iron Man. But I really liked Hap because he was, like, really focused and knew exactly what he had to do, and, like, did absolutely, like, basically almost sacrificed his entire life to get this weapon made and come in to actually, like, he was the only one who could really, go against Thanos. Like, he was, I don't know. I really liked his storyline in this movie.
Okay.
So for me, there's really kind of two. The first being what I alluded to with the characters that we may not see in Russia and China, and that would be Red Skull.
Yep.
The very overt relation to communism from the 1950s comics, that cannot be missed. And I know that there have been sanctions around other superhero or supervillain characters in the past. I'm just speculating with again, no real fact to kind of back me up, but I know that there's definitely a drive to remove those elements from Western entertainment when presented in those blocks. But I thought the cameo was my jaw. I was enjoying the movie up until that point, but that was the first time that my jaw literally hung open there for a second. I thought that was so well done, and there's so many implications to that with a character who's been removed from the MCU for 50-ish or 60-ish years by timeline, to kind of just show up and have it be explained that, he's part of the Soul Stone. And I just, that gave me chills. I'm getting chills thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I did love that moment.
So that was an event really more so as a character, but I thought it was well done, even if the actor changed. But it was deeper for me. I don't know. But overall, Doctor Strange, I was not expecting to continue the Doctor Strange fanboyism, but it was certainly there. I loved his resolve. I love the intelligence behind it, even though he's really Benedict Cumberbatch as a superhero.
Right.
Yeah.
He is to Doctor Strange as Robert Downey Jr. is to Iron Man at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he just fits the part so well, but he's got this absolute resolve that no matter what, he's not giving up the time zone. Nothing is going to sway him. There's no emotional decision to be had there. Oh, but wait. Now that I get some information that is irrefutable and the one solution out of millions to get there, it's the one thing he needs to do, and he does it without hesitation.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a little weird. It's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. Okay, I'm giving it up. And I kind of sat there for a minute. I went, what? That doesn't make... I'm like, well, maybe he has to, and it's the only way we get through this.
Right.
So,
that's what I'm thinking, because it was the one solution out of, how many billion, he said?
Right.
15-some billion.
So for me, as far as, characters, I thought that if this was Thanos' movie, which I believe that it definitely was, the next person that I think had the biggest role in this movie was Thor, because it was a direct continuation off of the last movie he was in, and there was the whole stuff him being picked up by the Guardians of the Galaxy was one of those moments where, as soon as the music started playing, I was like, yes, this is where the Guardians get together with Thor. This is how they're going to get introduced into the greater MCU and the rest of the world. And the interaction between Star-Lord, Peter Quill, and Thor, him all of a sudden Star-Lord trying to drop his voice and trying to sound more manly. And
gosh, it was so funny.
And them calling him on it, and Drax saying, he looks like a pirate angel, and then he kept calling that. And, I feel like they continued on with the humor aspect from Thor Ragnarok with Thor's character in this movie really well. And then him going to get the Stormbreaker axe, and with Rocket Raccoon, or the Rabbit as he called him.
Oh my God, Rabbit!
He's like, you must be the captain. You're smart and intelligent.
I totally intended to be calling you Rabbit all night, and totally forgot about that before the podcast.
Yes. But I think if Thanos was the main story, this was a very strong secondary story. It was kind of Thor's journey to reclaim his ability to do what he does, right? He's the god of thunder, and he told Thanos at the beginning, he's like, it doesn't matter how many stones you have, you can have the power of the gods, but you're not a god. And he fully intends to be the one to kill Thanos. And so I really love Thor's storyline, and I love the Guardians, that kind of pairing there. The other thing, and I loved a lot of the characters, but I loved that Peter Parker was still Peter Parker in this movie.
Yeah.
They kept the essence of who his character was in Civil War and Spider-Man Homecoming, and he's still just a teenager. When this is all going down, he's riding the school bus on his way to a freaking whatever, not a recess, but a field trip, yes.
Or home, maybe.
And
in New York, they have to ride the school buses, or they have to ride the school bus to recess. It's for safety reasons.
Yes.
There's no grass.
But I love that they kept his character there, and little interaction with Doctor Strange, and he's like, "Hi, my name's Peter." He's like, "I'm Doctor Strange." He's like, "Oh, we're using our made up names. I'm Spider-Man."
Yeah. We saw that so many times on the trailer, and I still laughed.
It still made me
funny,
laugh. Yeah. And so I loved that. I felt that I felt that the writers, the Russos, that like they figured out a way to like preserve all the little things that could easily be overshadowed in a big movie like this.
Yeah.
And still keep the characters to feel like true to who they are as characters. So.
And can I say one surprise?
Yes.
That I loved? Peter Dinklage.
Yes.
Oh, I did not even know he was in this movie. And then
As
you
the
see him and I was like,
dwarf?
it's freaking
Yes.
Peter Dinklage as this giant dwarf. And he was awesome. And I have to say, that whole storyline though was like, I really liked it. It was like, it got me in the feels.
Okay. Yeah.
Just did.
So we're talking about characters we like. Was there any characters that you didn't like or that felt maybe underwhelming?
I think Iron Man was a bit bullish in this one. I think every scene that he was in, even though I think the pairing between him and Doctor Strange was awesome, Iron Man was very aggressive. Tony Stark was very aggressive. Definitely trying to push his way into every situation. But with that, it's still barely noticeable. It's an evolution of Iron Man. It's not necessarily out of character. And I have to think about it to really come up with that, because otherwise I did not take issue with anyone where I usually do.
What about you, Britta?
Yeah, I don't think I walked away so far with only one viewing. I don't have anything I can think of, any characters or anything that I'm just like, I just didn't care for that or that person or anything. Like, I didn't get as much of some characters as I would have liked.
Sure.
But it's kind of hard to with a cast this big and
I felt
this story.
I felt that Black Panther was a little underwhelming in this movie, because he really didn't have a role other than saying like, hey, we'll accept you here, and hey, let's take down the shields.
Go fight.
I mean, other than that, I just felt like, especially considering that his movie was so big and so popular and made so much money, and like you kind of felt like he was going to have a more meatier role in this, maybe. But basically, it was just like, hey, I'm here because this is happening in Wakanda. If this had happened in like New York City, would we have gotten Black Panther there? No. And so I feel like this was just kind of a little underwhelming. Like, not bad. I'm not saying it was bad, but I'm just saying that I felt like he was a little underused. And I also say Bucky, the Winter Soldier, was a little underused as well. Like,
yeah.
So for me, I just saw Black Panther, so really there's almost some kind of continuity to me that this is almost the same story. So I don't feel underwhelmed by Black Panther, but that's with the knowledge that I just, literally the week before walked out of seeing a whole movie about Black Panther. So there really wasn't much of a gap there.
It was a good transition.
Yeah. Bucky, yes, but he's never been a major character except to play, the pseudo-villain, pseudo-friend to Captain America.
Right. So let's talk about the ending, and then we can just kind of free talk about whatever. But
only half of us can talk about the ending.
Yes. So Thanos wants to kill everyone. He doesn't want to kill everyone. He wants to kill
just
half of
everyone.
Yes.
Very specific.
He wants to kill half of everyone. And he gets all the Infinity Stones, which is really interesting too, because going back to this Doctor Strange thing, they try to destroy the Mind Stone, and they do. Wanda blows up the Mind Stone, and then because now Thanos has the Time Stone, he just reverts time back and then rips it out of Vision's head, and now he's got it. So, the stones kind of building upon one or the other, he uses each new one to further things along. He gets all 6. He snaps his finger, and we start seeing people dying. Here's the interesting thing. Did you notice when he snapped his finger, like, it looked like the gauntlet almost melted and fried a little bit?
Yes.
Yep.
Do you think he has the ability to use it again in the same way he just did?
No.
I don't think it can control all 6 stones anymore.
I think that was his 3 wishes, if you will. That was taking every ounce of what was in the stones to make that one event in time and space happen.
Right. So he kills he kills off half the population. So let's review the list of all the people that die.
Oh, do we have that much time?
There's
Do we want to focus on the major people?
Sure, we'll focus on the major people. So we know he kills basically a lot of Xandarians to get the Power Stone, which was, held there, and that happened at the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Mm-hmm. He killed pretty much what looks like all the rest of the Asgardians, which, interestingly enough, where was
Valkyrie?
Where was Valkyrie? Because
that's what I was wondering.
She was on the ship with Thor and Loki and Hulk and Heimdall. And where's all his new buddies that Hulk picked up in the arena?
Oh yeah.
We're gonna start a revolution. Doug will be there. Anyway, so a lot of the Asgardians are dead, if not all of them at this point. We're not quite sure. Heimdall obviously dies. He gets basically stabbed by Thanos. Loki's throat gets crushed. Mm-hmm. He sacrifices his own adopted daughter Gamora at the feet of basically Red Skull, throwing her down so he can get the Soul Stone. His Black Order, Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, Cull Obsidian, and Corvus Glaive, they all die, and I'm okay with that. The Collector dies, which we can assume. We didn't really see it, but he dies. Vision obviously dies. Bucky dies. Groot, Black Panther, Drax.
So these are all people that I'm just gonna say they were dusted.
Yes, they were turned to dust. Which, by the way, if they would have played one song there, that would have been like absolutely funny. If they would have played "Dust in the Wind" by Kansas, I get that it wouldn't have fit into the theme of the movie. It would have
ruined the mood, but it would have been funny.
That would have been one collective worldwide groan.
Yes, right. Absolutely. But someone out there's got to reclip that for YouTube eventually.
It's probably already done.
Yes, we lose Vision when the Mind Stone's taken out, but to the, as Britta puts it, the dusting, we lose Bucky,
the dusting,
Groot, we lose Black Panther, Drax, Mantis, Star-Lord, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Maria Hill, Nick Fury, and then, of course, half the population of the entire universe.
Right.
So that's a lot of people. And I want to talk about this specifically because, was this a great moment? Yes. And this is what I alluded to earlier. I wanted to have a moment that if they were going to kill off everyone, make this the Empire Strikes Back moment. Make it hurt, make it raw, and then end the movie.
Yeah.
No post-credit scenes where, everything gets reversed. No post-credit scenes where, they find a way to save someone from it, and now they're going to try to figure out how to use that to restore No. End it on a dark note. End it on a down note. And they did that, and I loved that moment. But here's the thing. We know that there's another Spider-Man movie coming.
Yep.
We know that there's another Black Panther movie coming, another Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Rocket Raccoon was the only Guardian that survived.
Yeah.
How are you going to do a Guardians of the Galaxy movie with just Rocket?
He'd be okay with it.
Oh, he'd be
totally
fine.
Be fine with it.
He is the captain, by the way.
That wascally wabbit.
But you lose Doctor Strange, and they said that they're going to do another Doctor Strange movie.
Well, sure. So really the question in that regard, though, is which of these occurs before Avengers 4? We know for certain that Spider-Man 2 comes before Avengers 4.
No, it comes after Avengers 4. The movies that are coming up still in the MCU is you're going to get Ant-Man and Wasp, which is the next movie. Which
we should talk about, but...
Which I think technically is supposed to happen before this movie. Then we're going to get Captain Marvel, which is going to be like next March, I think.
Right, but that's her origin story, her specific version or origin story in the 90s.
Right, in the 90s. And then the next movie will be in May of next year, May 2019, will be Avengers 4, whatever they're going to call it. Endgame or something like that. So I think we're going to get Ant-Man and the Wasp and Captain Marvel, and then we're going to be right back into Avengers again. So...
No, you're right. I had sworn the timing of that was reversed, but you're right. So the only ones that are slated are Ant-Man and Wasp and Captain Marvel, both of which are unaffected by the timeline.
Right, exactly. So here's the thing. I've read some of these comics, and so I know what they do in the comics to get to this point. The comics are different, though, because Thanos' motivations are a little bit different, but we kind of get to this same point where a lot of people die. We know that can't stand. We know that that's not going to happen. I think anyone that watches this movie has that realization because they know there are going to be more movies. And they killed off a lot of the newer Marvel characters because the original Avengers team all make it through this movie.
Right.
And let's be honest, we got expiring contracts. Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans.
Robert Downey Jr.'s contract had already expired once.
Yes. And he's basically sticking around because he's enjoying it. But Chris Evans...
He's getting a per movie contract.
Yes.
It's ridiculous.
It's big, yeah. Chris Evans, though, this next Avengers movie is his last contractual movie, and he has stated repeatedly that he's done playing Captain America. He wants to move on and do other things as an actor.
Yeah, I hear he wants to go revise his role as the Human Torch, I think.
Ooh. I'd be down for that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'd be okay if Jessica Alba came back too. Okay, maybe not. Maybe for some reasons, but not for others.
You have to live with him. I don't.
Yeah. So the thing that really kind of gets me is that we know that this isn't permanent.
Right.
We know it. However, I do feel that we are in for a few deaths that will come up that will be permanent. And I also think that there's a few deaths in this movie that will be permanent. I think Heimdall and Loki aren't coming back.
The funny thing is this has the same potential as the comic books do. Nobody is ever dead forever.
True.
But we don't have people that are being put ink to paper, even if there's blood in the ink or not. These are real actors that have expiring contracts that want to do other things with their lives.
Yep.
I mean, this is a big burden for any actor to take on to be a part of the MCU. Even like the Falcon, where they're supporting roles really, this is still a huge chunk and it still controls a lot of your life as well. What are you allowed to do? When are you expected to be on set for certain things? Because this has to be your top priority or else the role goes to somebody else, the end. The work behind acting, you get to sit there and pretend over and over again, but it's really a lot of work. And the burden that would take on somebody's stress level, I just can't even imagine being RDJ in this, let alone anybody else. So yeah, it's got to happen. And it's cheesy to replace someone with different actors. They got away with it with Red Skull. There's a mask there. The accent is, somewhat different, but that's as far as you could go.
Yeah.
I mean, suddenly replace Star-Lord with me. It's not going to be very well received.
I'd movie past that.
Oh, thanks, Rabbit.
Is Gamora dead? Do you think Gamora comes back?
I think so.
I think more than just comes back. I think she is going to somehow be the instrument of how things get reversed.
Okay.
I mean, we see that scene that's, what is as part of Thanos' psyche, whatever, not sure where he actually interacts with the younger Gamora.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think she's going to be pivotal.
I think so too. I think because he had to sacrifice her, because he did love her, just because of the way it all went down, I just don't see that being permanent. There's definitely a lot of ways I think they can take to get out of it. Plus, I'm sure there's things we don't understand about the Soul Stone, because that's the only one where you had to do something like make a sacrifice, like one soul for another kind of a thing. There's got to be something more with that. You know what I mean?
Right. And does part of her essence become part of the Soul Stone? Is that why
that's
it's necessary? The Soul Stones get shattered. Her psyche's a part of that.
Yeah. There's a whole lot of ways to deal with something like that, I think.
And I think a lot of people could be brought back, but we don't really know. one of the questions I know a lot of people have had online, I kind of didn't because I kind of, I kind of like this stuff, so I kind of know some things, but a lot of people are really surprised by the post-credit scene where you have Agent Maria Hill and Nick Fury. And as soon as things start going south, Nick Fury, like, calm, cool, collected as always, just like it goes to, like, do the next thing he needs to do to, help out. And then, of course, he almost gets his trademark line in, but of course it's a Marvel movie, so they're not going to quite let that happen.
But the judges did accept it.
Yes. But he makes a call on what looks like a souped up pager, which just kind of looked like a pager from the 90s with a few extra bits glued onto it, in my opinion.
Right.
But a little symbol appears on it, and of course, if you know much, you know that that's the symbol for Captain Marvel. It's the Hala star. It's the symbol of the Kree home world. But the specific colors that's going to be Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel. So we know, if you've been following along, that she was potentially going to even be in this movie, but they decided to hold her back. How big of a role? I
thought she was going to be in it right up until she wasn't.
Yeah, absolutely. How big of a role do you think she's going to play coming up in the next Avengers movie?
She's the next Iron Man. I think she's going to be the leader. I think they're setting her up for it.
Like, I know nothing about Captain Marvel. I know nothing about the storyline, like what could potentially happen. So, like, my only thought is she's like, if they're contacting her because this giant, huge thing happened, she's going to be the one that's going to potentially start to fix it all.
So my question is, because we know that her movie's going to take place back in the 90s and Nick Fury's going to be there and Phil Coulson's going to be back in it, why wouldn't she have been called during the invasion of New York in the first Avengers movie?
Because they hadn't cast her yet.
And that I think you're right. I think that's the real world answer. But don't you think that they're going to have to find some reason to explain why they didn't in the MCU?
Well, I think...
Yeah, but...
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, okay, I actually thought about this today because I don't know anything about any of this stuff. So this is completely whatever. I thought that was like, wasn't that the very first, that was the first Avenger movie, right?
Yeah.
When all that happened. So my thought is they were just like, hey, we've got all these superhero people, like powers and whatnot, and that we're going to form them into this group now. So let's just see what they can do. And if they can beat these guys, then we're good. I just don't think it got to, threat level midnight that they needed to, like...
That's my next metal band
call her
name.
in yet. They're like, let's test out these guys first and see what they can do. And then if something bigger comes, we've got a backup. That was my thought.
I think there has to be some suspension of disbelief, and I think the studios are going to rely on us to hold that to be true, that there are going to be origins that have to just assume that we're going to buy whatever story they tell us because nothing's really truly going to work. We've had a couple times where Nick Fury is specifically and other characters in the universe are acting like all these powered people are brand new. Like, we know we had the super soldiers like Captain America, but that was the exception. That was the anomaly. Now suddenly we have these aliens from space. We've got this millionaire with a rocket suit. But how many new stories can you bring into humans suddenly becoming superheroes? One that Nick Fury knew about, that he had her on speed dial more or less with a pager. Either her origin story is going to be that big secret, or it's going to be cheesy, it's going to be campy, it's just going to be a quick, we're expecting you to forgive us, let's move on.
Right. I hope it's the former, that it's some big secret and that's why why she's not around, because she was from Earth and then goes off into space, right? So hopefully it's something good. I know a lot of people talked about the promotional materials, about how Hawkeye and Ant-Man weren't on any of the promotional materials for this film, even though we know that they did filming because they're going to be in the next movie. Did you guys, did that bug you that they weren't there? Did you miss them? Was that a thing for you?
I thought there were, and this is not specific to those characters, I thought there were going to be many more other superheroes that either new or returning roles. I thought there were going to be a lot more characters involved than what we actually got. And I've kind of reviewed some of the prior speculation to see where I got that from. There's never really been any promotional material for a whole bunch of characters that I was expecting to be in this movie. But they didn't really go out of their way to prove anyone wrong either. Not that they should have.
Who else were you expecting?
Other characters I'm not really familiar with, not being the comic guy that I am. But it just seemed like at the end of Age of Ultron, now I'm getting my memories mixed up. Anyway, the end of I guess it was Civil War. There's the new younger Avengers are kind of going to be coming into their own, and I thought maybe we were going to see some of those characters just come into play. But it was really kind of the headliners and the main supporting characters that we got, and nobody else, which I'm glad for, to be honest. But I didn't really miss that there wasn't Ant-Man per se. So.
Yeah, I was actually expecting Hawkeye and Ant-Man, and then they made that little comment like, oh yeah, they're, they made a deal, blah, 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 because they're families, they're not going to be here. Right. And I was like, okay. Like, I don't know, I found it odd. I'm sure there was some reason for it, but I found it odd. But then I was talking with someone today, and they were just like, their speculation was, well, because they're like the ones that have kids, right?
Right. Hawkeye
has kids and Ant-Man has his daughter. And so obviously like they made some deal to protect their families because of the Sokovia Accords. And they were just like, well, how much you want to bet something happened because of Thanos, snapping his fingers that now their kids are gone or something like that. So now they're going to join the fight and be in the next one. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Gives them a reason to come back. But I still find it odd that they weren't in this one.
You actually have to ask me if I missed Hawkeye to remember Hawkeye. That's the problem. I mean, and it's unfortunate. I think he's a great actor. I think MCU's treatment of the character has been lackluster. But there are Hawkeye fans out there who were definitely upset about the posters. I'd be curious to hear what they think about it.
Yeah. A question I have for you guys. How did Thor know how to go to Wakanda? That was the place where everything was going down. Because Thor shows up and looks like a bad A and just starts going to town with his new axe, the Stormbreaker. How did he know Wakanda was the place? That's my question.
The Bifrost knowing what it was he was trying to find.
You think that was the simple answer?
Yeah.
I mean, I love the fact that the new axe, this big Stormbreaker weapon has the ability to harness the Bifrost, so he doesn't need Heimdall to kind of do that for him, which to me also says that Heimdall is really going to be dead, and we're gonna move forward because now
so
Thor doesn't need him.
Well, Mjolnir died, so there's that.
There is that. But that was one of the things I kind of went like, yeah, how did Hulk know? Like afterwards, like after seeing it for the second time, thinking I'm like, yeah, how did he know where to go? Because he just shows up, and don't get me wrong, it was pretty awesome. And of course, he shows up with Rocket and Groot. And then I love that little scene. There's just a quick little thing where you get Bucky picking up Rocket and holding him out and spinning around. Because it reminded me really a lot of that first scene, the jailbreak scene in the first Guardians movie, style-wise at least. Very, very, very similar.
No, I actually I went with my ex, and that was her favorite part. She's a Bucky fiend, and Bucky and Rabbit together.
Mm-hmm. My last question I've got for you guys here on some of these characters and some of the character issues. We saw the Hulk at the very beginning of this movie, and in the promotional materials you see, in some of these clips that Marvel's now gotten real sneaky with, the whole we're gonna throw these things there and it's gonna be a red herring because we know that Thor lost his eyeball and is wearing a patch, yet later we see him get an eyeball from Rocket and he puts it in. But of course, when you watch the trailer, you see him trying to, on that dwarf star, trying to hold that iris open, and he's got a patch on. But he's got an eye back in the actual movie during that scene. So they're kind of playing loose and fast with this. So we see Hulk running with the whole group of the Avengers. However, we only see Hulk at the very beginning of the movie because we see Bruce Banner the rest of the time. He's in the Hulkbuster suit. But for some reason, the Hulk doesn't want to come out and play. And
Hulk got his butt beat and he's pouting.
And that's kind of what I felt. And I had a talk with my brother, and my brother says that one of his biggest gripes with this movie and biggest gripes with the Hulk character is that he feels like from each movie the Hulk is in, that the writers change the Hulk's personality. They change the Hulk character too much for him. And then in this one, he's like, yeah, the Hulk wouldn't even come out. And he's like, but the Hulk would kind of talk to him. And in the last one, he didn't care for the Hulk in Thor Ragnarok because he thought that, Hulk talked too much and, was like too kind of jovial. How did you feel about the dynamic of, Bruce Banner wanting, which I think is a very interesting thing, wanting the Hulk to come out, but he couldn't get the Hulk to come out. What did you think about that, Britta?
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting because, normally he's trying to control him and keep him from coming out. But at the very beginning of this, he gets in that fight with Thanos and he does not win that fight. And that doesn't usually happen to Hulk. And I think he got a little bit scared and he was holding back and didn't want to come back out. And I thought that was interesting because normally you don't see the fight between Banner and the Hulk. You just see one or the other and you see a quick change, but there's not this, both parts of the man at the same time. So I thought that was really interesting, and it was fun to see Banner in that, the giant Iron Man Hulk suit, getting to fight as himself, which he never gets to do because it's always Hulk when he's fighting. So it took me a while to realize that that's what was happening, that he was just scared to come out again and he didn't want to. So.
Well, he did also get his butt beat by Thor just before that as well. So.
True.
No, I think your brother's definitely onto something with that. They definitely treat both Bruce Banner and Hulk differently in every movie. And even the dichotomy between them and the struggle between them, it's not managed the same way twice. I think in and of itself, with the way this was done, I liked the fact that we got to see more Bruce and that Bruce got to be a hero rather than the Hulk. But it is a very different take on it. Even knowing that he's pouting, or assuming that he's pouting, even if a previous version of the Hulk were to be pouting, I don't think we would see it manifest this way. So I think it's unfortunate. I think the Hulk would have been a good asset from a character standpoint in all of this. I like that they had the Hulkbuster, but I think it's unfortunate. I think the Hulk has definitely gotten the shaft, and I don't think this has been a departure from that theme.
I think they treat Banner pretty evenly throughout all the movies. I'll disagree with you slightly there because I think Banner for the most part gets the
with regards to his relationship to the Hulk only.
Right. But yeah, I also kind of look at it as maybe an evolution of the Hulk character because in the first Avengers movie, Banner, kind of gives the thing, is like, what's the secret, Cap? I'm always angry, and then he immediately just hulks out and, and lets the rage take over. And then in Ultron, he's kind of the same, but he understands, that he needs to move on. And then you get this idea that during Ragnarok, he's been the Hulk for 2 years, that he's subjected on this planet to, the game master, and that he's constantly angry because he's a prisoner. And so Hulk, and he even says something like, I feel like, I used to feel like I had one hand on the wheel. Now I feel like I'm trapped in the trunk, and the Hulk's just, the one controlling everything. And so I think they try to give some change to the Hulk character there. But now it's maybe a different kind of balance after all of that, right? After being the Hulk for the last, 2 years or more. But you know what? I mean, I understand that. I mean, it hasn't been the most even-handed treatment of a character.
I think it's just too much for them to be able to effectively write two characters as one.
That, or also to maybe effectively get the writing across in movies that aren't a Hulk movie. I mean, you're having to do it in pieces here and there in big team up movies. Maybe there's a little bit of suffering from that. But
I loved Hulk in the beginning of Ragnarok. That was Hulk. The arena fight, that was brutal and brilliant.
Right.
Yeah.
A lot of other things. Here's one last little thing, and this is an Easter egg. This is an Easter egg of Easter eggs, I thought. Did you watch all the way to the end credits, and did you see that they acknowledged that they used something from Arrested Development?
I did, actually, and I did not put that piece together.
I saw that, and I had to go look up what it was, because I was like, what did they use from Arrested Development? And I kept thinking, because obviously the Russo brothers, Joe and Anthony Russo, worked on the television show Arrested Development back in the day. And in the scene where they go to the collector in the middle of nowhere, there's, in one of the cages, a blue man in short cutoffs, a never nude, if you will. It is Dr. Tobias Funke. But it's not actually David Cross. David Cross wasn't actually Dr. Tobias Funke there. So it wasn't him, but they made it look just like him. And I think that was just a little nod by the Russo brothers as to something previous that they'd worked on.
Fair enough.
I loved that.
That's funny.
I thought it was a really cool little nod. So anyway, this movie ends obviously with all the deaths, right? All the deaths.
Well, half the deaths.
Half the deaths. Sorry, I am over exaggerating. Half of the entire universe. We lose a ton of people, and that all happens, and then boom, it goes right to credits. How did you feel at that moment, Britta?
Okay, so I was... Okay, first of all, that was all very emotional. For me, I'm an extremely emotional person, so when I was watching that, I was just like, I kept seeing what was happening, and I was like, well, how are they gonna fix this? Like, the movie's gonna be over soon, how are they gonna fix this? And I look at my watch, and I was like, nope, this is like, and then it just ends, and I was like, well, that was the end, and I was just stunned, and I felt like the whole theater that I was sitting in was complete stunned silence. And you know how normally when a movie ends, even the Avengers ones, people know their stuff after the credits, like, still like half of the theater will get up and walk out, or people will start talking during the credits or whatever. It was complete silence in there. Like, nobody moved a muscle, nobody got up, no one was like rooting through their stuff, checking their phones. Like, everyone just sat in complete silence during the entire credits until, the little after scene at the very end with Nick Fury. But I was blown away. I was trying to decide if I liked it or not. I didn't know at that point.
Yeah, my experience was very similar. Everyone was dead quiet once the movie was done. As soon as they started, I would say maybe 3 or 4 characters in, just poofing to dust, and you start to catch on that this is the reality, this is the event. That was when I knew that that's exactly where they were going to end the movie. Yeah. It was a little, I won't even say emotional, because I didn't even know what to feel or to think. It definitely just like took every part of my psyche by surprise, even though we saw it coming. I'm still trying to really process it. I'm not like super sad. We know that these characters are coming back. We know that this is a plot device. We know that there's already an intended follow-up to this movie. And it was still done so well that you can't help but be affected by it. So I knew it was going to end. I wasn't surprised by it. I wasn't surprised by how it ended. But knowing all that meta stuff, the things to come, they put the finality of that moment in place so freaking well.
I only could use one word to describe it, and that's beautiful. Because I thought that
You're
moment...
a monster.
Right. Kill all the peoples. Kill them all.
Half.
No. I'm going full on Thanos. I'm going all the way.
Oh,
I'm
so
going
you're not just Rabbit. You're like Monty Python Rabbit.
Right. I thought it was beautiful because I kind of like you guys, right? You realize once you see the first, the first person turned to dust, and then the second, and then the third, you're like, oh my, this is going to be everyone or a lot of people. And so like that started happening, and I immediately had this thought. I'm like, if they end this right now and they don't play like some big, soundtrack, or this, big score, and they kind of let it just be quiet for a minute when they show the credits. And even if they kept it quiet, with maybe like a little bit of background score, just real subtle for like a good minute or something, I'm like, that would be a beautiful, haunting moment that like everyone would just sit there. And then like basically that just happened. And I'm like, yes, like for me, it rang true to like this is how you end this type of a movie. You don't give hope. You don't give a glimmer of like, hey, we're going to get out of this. This is a finale that we just lost a bunch of people, and you need to feel like you should be mourning. And I loved that. I thought that was a beautiful moment.
It was getting punched in the gut, and not so much the feeling of punched in the gut, but really what that means, because you've got that loss of breath coming, and then it hits and you can't catch your breath.
Yes.
You're still just dealing with it. As you were describing that scene, the moment you started saying that it was beautiful and everything slowed down and the sound was gone, it just immediately reminded me of the hyperspace crash in Last Jedi where she ran it through the ship. It was that just everything stops and it just kind of amplifies and builds up as it gets brighter. Completely different scene. It was completely different setup, but it still provides that same feeling.
Right. And I leaned over to my buddy and I said, I hope, because when the credits started kind of going and the score kind of picked back up, I said, I hope they don't have any post-credit scenes. And I said that to him because that also would be a monster. I said that also would be a massive departure. But they did. They had the post-credit scene with Maria Hill and Nick Fury. But what I loved about that was, though, it basically just reinforced the ending you just saw, knowing that this wasn't just affecting our superheroes, our favorite characters, but was going to affect, half the population of the universe. And we lost Maria Hill, and we lost Nick Fury, and there was that little glimmer of, hey, he's contacting Captain Marvel, but realistically, like for me, like it felt very thematic to the way the movie just ended, and didn't haha, psych, everything's fine.
Right.
Nick Fury's going to shoot off a rocket, and it's going to, blow up some magic dust that's going to reform everyone. No, it wasn't that. And so I was happy. I felt like it was a reinforcement moment.
It was. And, but I think what they did there, and just to go back to the hypothesis of not having a post-credit scene, that would have been internet fury. Like, that would have been lawsuits. That would have been death threats. That
internet been, Nick Fury.
Oh, man. Yeah, the internet would have lost an eye. But no, so they did it, and it did validate that. And you just sat through 10, 15 minutes of silence in most theaters, I would presume, watching these credits, chewing on what you just saw. And it's reinforced, and it's real. Yeah. But they give you that, but it's not over yet. Right.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, 1 in a million.
Yeah. So I thought that the way this ended, like I said, was beautiful. I think that it's a moment that people are going to talk about for a long time, especially in the MCU, because it's such a drastic departure. And I had this thing, and I said this, that it felt like The Empire Strikes Back, like the end of Empire Strikes Back, when Luke has lost his hand, and Han has been frozen in carbonite, and he's gone, and you see Luke and Leia in the hangar there with R2 and C-3PO just kind of like looking out, and like you realize like emotionally it's that gut punch that you said, Stu, right? You know it's coming, but like you just can't get your breath, and it's like, man, and it just hits you and it affects you. That moment for Empire Strikes Back felt like it had been replicated differently, in a different way, but it felt like it had been replicated here in this movie, which for me is completely different than any other Marvel movie. I don't think we've ever had a Marvel movie that's done or tried to do anything as ambitious as to make you have this type of a moment, this type of an experience.
Well, I feel like they tried with Civil War, but they whiffed a bit. But as far as a relation to Empire Strikes Back, I don't get that same feeling. Like, Empire Strikes Back still was very clearly not the end of the story. Even from the story perspective, take out the meta part of it and everything. We knew that there was more to come. We knew that even though they were down, they weren't out. And there was just, there were plans that were going to be made. I think the ending of Infinity War is much more final, at least from the perspective of that moment in time. Half the people are really gone. As they're sitting there going through it and you're looking at the scenes with multiple characters on screen, they do it one by one just to make you guess at who's going to be next, who's going to live, who's going to die. As much as I've always been a Star Wars fanboy, will always be a Star Wars fanboy far more than MCU. I think that moment in time for me was much more impactful than Empire Strikes Back ever could have been.
I also think maybe, I was going to say not nostalgia, but age. I was a lot younger when I saw Empire Strikes Back, and so it definitely had a much stronger impression on me when I was younger and more impressionable.
I actually didn't like it as much when I was a kid. I didn't appreciate Empire Strikes Back until I was a little more grown up.
What did you think, Britta? Did you draw that comparison? Did you have that feeling? Tell me.
Well, I actually did. Like, one of my friends today was asking me about the movie, and I was telling her, I was trying to explain some of it to her without giving her spoilers, because she was trying to see if it was appropriate for her children. And I was like, it's gonna end kind of like, I was just like, it's like Empire Strikes Back. Like, it's not a happy ending, but, there's gonna be another one. So...
It's the ending we deserve.
So, I mean, that's kind of how I compared it. I definitely see it as that. Maybe not for the same reasons as you, but in my mind, that just popped into my mind when I was talking to her, just thinking, yeah, I think it's a comparable type of movie moving into another one with the kind of sad, not hopeful ending, moving into another one.
So let's put this question out. Let's make this the question of the week, I think, for the Super Friends. Was Infinity War this generation's Empire Strikes Back? Is it going to be that movie that's going to be the one you look back at and say, like, this was the highlight, this was the turning moment for the MCU, for the series? Do you draw that comparison? So I want to know. Hit us up on all the normal places: email, Facebook, Twitter, and the voicemail. Was Infinity War this generation's Empire Strike Back? I'm gonna guess with what Stu has said that you're gonna say no. Britta's gonna say yes, and I'm gonna say maybe, because
how convenient.
I want to say yes, but I think in order to do that, like, you have to follow up, and you have to follow it up right. And I think Return of the Jedi followed up really well on, like, hey, we're now going to try to pick up the threads of what just happened and, like, try to find a way to bring this all back together again so we can put the band back together, man. And so it depends on what's going to happen in the next movie. But I definitely felt like that vibe, that overtone was really there for me. But once again, it's hard for me to overthrow Empire Strikes Back because that's my favorite film of all time. So that's a little hard. So Super Friends, let us know. Stu and Britta, give me your last thoughts on Avengers Infinity War. Is this going to be a movie that's going to rate highly in your MCU movies? Is this going to be a movie that rates highly in all your movies, period? And what's your takeaway from this movie?
I made a very false claim the other day that Winter Soldier would forever be my favorite Marvel movie.
Oh, here we go.
Infinity War blew it. Well, it didn't blow it away. I still enjoy Winter Soldier a lot, but first viewing impression anyway, it is definitely my favorite. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about the spider suit.
Oh, the spider suit was so good. So good.
Just Spider-Man was awesome in this.
Spider-Man was awesome. Well, I mean, the spider suit is a different character, really. But like the upgrade to the Iron Spider was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yep, favorite.
Yeah.
What about you, Britta? Where are you at?
Yeah, I think in context with all of the movies, like if you have seen all of them, and if you're seeing this movie, I hope you've seen all of them, because it just brings everything together so well that it's like this ultimate culmination of all these different stories built into this one big, huge story that's just massive and funny and emotional, and there was a lot going on and they were kind of all over the place, but I still felt like it was pretty cohesive. Definitely probably my favorite by right now. Like, I'm going to say right now, I don't know about the next one, but right now, this is probably my favorite one.
Well, and that's a point, right? Because Winter Soldier not just was impactful, but it stands the rewatch test of time over and over again. So we'll see how that goes here.
I've been trying to think about this for a few days now. Like, where do I put this? Do I recommend this movie? Absolutely. Go see it. If you haven't seen it and you've listened to the end of this podcast and all the spoilers, well, I'm sorry, but we did warn you.
And you'll still enjoy it anyway.
And you'll still enjoy it anyway. But I absolutely recommend it. And I recommend going back and rewatching it, because I picked up on a lot of dialogue that I missed the first time due to like laughs, where a lot of people would laugh during the comedy parts, and then, missed like the next dialogue, which sometimes was just as good. But Winter Soldier to me is such an amazing film on a number of levels. And I don't know for me if this tops this, because this is a big battle. It's Thanos' story, but it's a lot of fighting and it's a lot of big battle. And usually that kind of suffers a little bit. The Winter Soldier had a much richer story overall. However, this movie had so many moving pieces, and I think that they found a way to make all of the moving pieces really work for the most part. There wasn't a lot of really wasted characters or space that was used. So it's going to be up there. I don't know if it gets the top spot. Maybe it does, but it's one of those things where I have to chew on it a little bit more. Yeah. And I want to see it again, because of the way that ended, it just left you with that emotional impact. And it's like, I need to digest it more. I need to chew it a little bit more. I need to figure out how it's really going to affect me and kind of what I think. So I'm not sure. I'm a little on the fence still.
Well, with Winter Soldier, with the single hero stories, you have a pretty much nonstop beginning to end ride. And it has the continuity of it doesn't distract you from a lack of continuity. Like I think they really failed with the ensemble movies before in some parts. So that by itself had, any of the individual movies will have going for it. Winter Soldier was done very well in that regard, better than average. Obviously, the story was very gripping. The action scenes were perfect. Winter Soldier had everything going for it.
Yeah.
The ensemble movies don't, and I've expressed that before. And I think they still somehow managed to get all those pieces put together finally in a way that made absolute perfect sense. And still somehow, despite my love for Winter Soldier, and despite the setbacks I feel exist with the ensemble films, it still did it well enough to take top for me. But those differences are going to be what's key in whether I continue to like it over and over again.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a lot of fun. I know we could easily talk more because there's a lot of things we didn't cover, and obviously this podcast could be like 5 or 6 hours long.
Yeah, I'm sure we're never going to mention Avengers Infinity War ever again.
Right, exactly. It's a one and done thing. Britta, thank you for coming back again for another movie club. I always enjoy doing this month after month with you, and giving us your perspective, your unique take. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm sure we're going to do this. I'm sure we're going to do this again with Solo, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's not going to be a solo show. It's going to be a solo show.
Did it?
Yeah.
And Stu, thank you for joining me again this week and for the future weeks to come. And I'm glad that you decided to make the Fortress of Nerditude a permanent residence of yours for the foreseeable future.
No, I'm having a really good time. This feels really natural, and I love it. Glad to be here.
Well, super friends, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always.
I am Groot!
Mr. Stark, I don't want to go.
Oh.
That made me so sad.